The voice of the muezzin echoed through the quiet streets of Mardi as I stood by the kitchen window, watching the sun set behind the distant towers of Cairo. The smell of molokhia I was cooking filled the house, while the sound of the television drifted from the living room, where my husband Ahmed sat with his friend Karim, watching the match. "Come on, Ahmed, the game's about to start," I heard Karim's excited voice rise. "Are you sure about this bet?" I smiled as I stirred the molokhia in the pot. Ahmed had always been obsessed with football, especially Al Ahly. We had been married for 5 years, and I had learned to accept his passion for the game, even though I never understood how 22 men chasing a ball could stir up so much emotion. "Of course I'm sure," Ahmed replied confidently. "Al Ahly will crush Zamalek tonight. You know this is the derby of the century." I walked into the living room carrying a tray of tea and biscuits. Ahmed looked up at me with a smile. He was wearing Al Ahly's red jersey, his curly black hair uncombed since the morning. "Noura, my love, come sit with us for a bit before the match starts," he said, patting the couch beside him. I sat down next to him and noticed the tension in Karim's eyes. He had been Ahmed's friend since university, a man in his 40s, unmarried, working in an import-export company. He was always polite with me, but there was something in his gaze at times that made me uneasy. "What's this bet you're talking about?" I asked as I poured the tea into the cups. Ahmed and Karim exchanged a quick glance, then Ahmed laughed. "Nothing important, my love. Just a simple bet on the match." "Simple? How?" I pressed, knowing Ahmed well enough to see he was avoiding my eyes. "Come on, Ahmed, tell her," Karim said, sipping his tea. "You're married, no secrets." Ahmed sighed and scratched his head. "My love, we agreed that if Al Ahly loses, I'll pay him $200. The cup nearly slipped from my hand. $200? That's half your monthly salary. Are you insane, Ahmed? We need that money for the apartment installment. "Wait, Noura," Ahmed said, holding my hand. "No need to worry. Al Ahly won't lose. Look at the lineup, look at the players. We'll crush Zamalek tonight." I glanced at Karim, who was smiling strangely. "And you, Karim? What will you pay if Zamalek loses?" "The same amount, of course," he replied. "But I'm sure Zamalek will win." The match began, and the commentators' voices rose from the television. Ahmed and Karim were completely absorbed, shouting and cheering as if their lives depended on the result. In the 15th minute, Zamalek scored the first goal. Ahmed's face turned pale, while Karim jumped up, screaming with joy. "It's fine," Ahmed said, trying to sound confident. "There's still plenty of time." But time passed, and Al Ahly failed to score. In the 78th minute, Zamalek scored again. Ahmed buried his head in his hands. When the match ended with Zamalek winning 2-0, silence filled the room. Ahmed stared at the screen in disbelief. "Come on, Ahmed," Karim said, standing up. "A bet is a bet." "But Karim," Ahmed's voice trembled, "you know I don't have that money right now." "Let me get it to you. Next month." Karim shook his head. "No, my friend. We agreed on something else." I looked at them in confusion. "Agreed on what?" A long silence hung in the room. Finally, Karim spoke. "We agreed that if Ahmed lost and didn't have the money, there would be another way to pay." "What way?" I asked, my heart pounding. Ahmed looked at me with eyes full of shame and regret. "Noura, I'm sorry. We agreed that you would kiss him in front of me." The words struck me like lightning. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. My husband, the man I loved and married, had wagered me in a football match. "What are you saying, Ahmed?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger. "You bet on me? On my dignity?" "Noura, I was sure Al Ahly would win. That's no excuse," I shouted, standing up. "How could you do this to me? How could you gamble with your wife's honor?" Karim watched calmly, his smile never leaving his face. "No need to get upset, Noura. Just a simple kiss, and it's over. A simple kiss." I glared at him. "There's nothing simple about this." Ahmed stood and grabbed my arm. "My love, I know I was wrong, but what do we do now? I don't have the money, and Karim has been my friend for years, and you're my wife." "Your wife," I cut him off. "The one you're supposed to protect and cherish, not wager in a football game." Tears welled in my eyes. How had we reached this point? How could the man I loved do this to me? "Well," Karim said, glancing at his watch, "I'm waiting for the kiss." or do you want to pay the money? Ahmed looked at me with pleading eyes. He knew $200 was a huge amount for us, and that we needed every penny for expenses.
I won't do it, I said firmly. Send him the money, borrow it, work another job, but I won't accept anyone else but you, Ahmed. Noura, please? No, I cut him off. There's nothing more to say. Either you find the money or what? Karim asked curiously. I looked at Ahmed for a long moment, then said, or we end this once and for all and see if you're truly a man. The next morning, I woke with a heavy heart. I hadn't slept well at all. Last night, Ahmed tried several times to speak with me, but I refused. How could I look into his eyes after what he had done? The morning was quiet in Mardi. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, and the voices of street vendors drifted up from outside. Hot bread, the baker called, as he did every morning. Ahmed walked into the kitchen wearing his work suit. He looked like he hadn't slept either. His eyes were bloodshot, his face pale. Good morning, Noura, he said softly.
I didn't reply. I continued preparing breakfast in silence. Beans, falafel, cheese, cucumbers, the same breakfast we had eaten every day for years. My love, we need to talk, he said, sitting at the table. There's nothing to talk about, I answered without looking at him. You gambled with your wife's dignity. That's all I need to know. But Noura, I regret it. I wasn't thinking straight. I was sure Al Ali would win, that the bet would never come to this. At last, I looked at him. And that makes what you did acceptable? You're a married man, Ahmed, not a child. You're supposed to think about the consequences of your actions. His hand trembled as he poured tea into his cup. So what's the solution now? Karim is coming this afternoon to take what's his, borrow it, I said firmly. From your family, your friends, anyone. But don't think for a second that I'll do what he asked. You know my family can't give me that kind of money. And my friends are struggling too. That's not my problem, I said, sitting across from him. You brought this on yourself. We ate breakfast in complete silence. Outside, the neighborhood was waking up, cars honking, children heading to school, employees rushing to work. Life went on as usual, while ours was falling apart. Noura, Ahmed said suddenly, what if we agreed with Karim on another solution? Another solution? Like what? Maybe I could pay him in installments. Or take on extra work. I looked at him with bitter sarcasm. And you're sure he'd accept that? That man doesn't just want money. He wants proof he won the bet. Ahmed knew I was right. Karim had always looked at me in a certain way, and this bet was his golden opportunity. Okay, but what if? Ahmed hesitated, then looked at me nervously. What if we did what he wants, but differently? What do you mean? I mean, just a quick kiss on the cheek and that's it. I laughed bitterly. You think that would satisfy him? He wants to humiliate me in front of you. He wants to see you standing there, powerless, unable to do anything. Ahmed suddenly stood and slammed his hand on the table. Fine. I won't let him touch you. I won't let him come near you. And then I'll fight him. But he could spread it everywhere, embarrass me at work, ruin my reputation. He sat back down and buried his head in his hands. He knew I was right. Karim was not the kind of man whose demands could be ignored. I'm going to work, Ahmed said, standing up. I'll think of a solution. Ahmed, I called after him before he left. You know you've destroyed everything between us, don't you? He looked at me with sorrow. I know. And I know I deserve whatever happens to me. After he left, I sat alone in the house, wondering how my life had come to this point. I was a respectable woman, a commerce graduate, working in an accounting firm, with friends and family who loved me. And now I had become the subject of a bet in a football match. The phone rang. I picked it up. It was my mother's voice. My dear, you didn't look well yesterday when you came to visit? I couldn't tell her what had happened. How could I say that my husband had gambled me away? I'm fine, Mama, just a little tired. And you and Ahmed, everything's okay? Yes, Mama, everything's fine. But nothing was fine. After I hung up, I sat thinking about my options. I could go to my family, tell them everything, and ask for a divorce. But that would mean the end of a 5-year marriage, the end of the dream we had built together. Or I could endure this humiliation once and teach Ahmed a lesson he would never forget. The hours crawled by. In the afternoon, the doorbell rang. My heart began to pound. Karim had arrived. I opened the door to find him standing there with his usual smile. He wore a dark, elegant suit, his hair neatly combed. "Hello, Noura," he said as he stepped inside. "Where's Ahmed?" "He hasn't come back from work yet," I replied. Karim sat on the couch as if it were his own home. "No problem, I'll wait. We have an important appointment today." I glared at him. "Karim, this isn't going to happen." He chuckled softly. "Noura, a bet is a bet, and Ahmed is a man of his word. I'm not something to be wagered on. But the matter is already settled," he said, looking at me in a way that made me deeply uncomfortable. "I'm just here to take what's mine." At that moment, we heard the sound of a key in the door. Ahmed walked in, his face weary and anxious. "Hello, Karim," he said nervously. "You came early." "Yes, I was eager to see the outcome," Karim replied mockingly. Ahmed sat beside me on the couch, holding his hands together. "Karim, I spoke to several people today. I can get the money, but only next month." "No, my friend," Karim said, shaking his head. "We agreed on something else. And an agreement is an agreement. But Karim—" "No buts," Karim cut him off. "Either this happens, or I'll tell everyone you're a man who doesn't keep his word." Just as I had expected, he threatened to expose him. Ahmed looked at me with pleading eyes. "Oh, Noura, please." In that moment, I made my decision. I stood up and looked at the two men before me, Ahmed, my husband, sitting broken and humiliated, and Karim, staring at me with lust and anticipation. I decided to end this degrading scene once and for all. "Karim," I said, in a calm but firm voice. "What exactly do you want?" I asked, forcing a wide smile. "I want what's mine from the bet. A kiss in front of Ahmed. After that, I'll leave you alone. The bet will be over, and I won't ask for anything else," he said, nodding with certainty. I looked at Ahmed, who was staring at the ground in shame. "And you, Ahmed, is this what you want?" He lifted his head toward me, his voice low. "I don't want any of this, but I can't find another way." "There is another way," I cut in sharply. "You could be a man and take responsibility for your mistake. Sell something, borrow money, work extra hours, anything other than bargaining with my dignity." "It's not like that, Noura," Ahmed said, standing up. "Oh, I understand perfectly," I snapped. "I understand that my husband gambled me away in a football match the same way he'd gamble a car or an apartment. I understand that he sees me as something he owns, not a human being with dignity." The room fell silent. Karim was watching the scene with amusement, while Ahmed looked like he wanted to disappear. "Fine," I said, turning to Karim. "I'll do what you want, but on one condition." A victorious smile spread across Karim's face. "What condition?" "That after this, you never come near this house again. And Ahmed cuts ties with you completely. Agreed?" "Agreed," Karim said quickly. Ahmed looked at me in shock. "Noura, you don't have to do this." "Stay out of it," I cut him off firmly. "You caused this mess, and now you're going to watch it play out." I stepped toward Karim, who stood waiting, taller than me, the heavy scent of his cologne filling the air. His eyes gleamed with lust and triumph. "Wait," I said, stopping him. "Before I do this, I want to tell you something." "Say it," he replied, leaning closer. "You think you've won, don't you?" "Of course I've won," he said confidently. I gave him a cold smile. "Wrong." In a flash, I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. The sound echoed through the room. Karim was stunned, his hand flying to his reddened cheek. "What the hell is this?" he shouted angrily. "This is part of the deal," I said calmly. "You asked for a kiss, and I said I'd give you what you wanted." "I never said I'd do it the way you expected. You're insane," he muttered, stepping back. "No, I'm not insane," I replied firmly. "I'm a woman with dignity, and I wanted to teach you a lesson you'll never forget." Ahmed suddenly stood up. "Noura, that's enough. Sit down," I shouted at him. "You caused this. and you're going to see it through. I turned back to Karim, who was still rubbing his cheek. So, do you still want the rest of what's yours? Karim was furious, but he tried to keep his composure. The bet was for a kiss, not a slap. And the kiss is coming, I said coolly, but in my way. I stepped toward him again. This time he was tense, bracing himself, expecting anything. I placed my hands on his shoulders and looked into his eyes. Karim, I said, in a calm voice, you want a kiss, right? He nodded hesitantly. Suddenly I lifted my knees swiftly and struck him in the weakest point of his body. Karim doubled over in pain and collapsed to the floor, groaning. That was the kiss, I said, standing over him. The kiss of farewell. Ahmed stood frozen in complete shock. Nora, what did you just do? I did what had to be done, I replied firmly. I taught this man a lesson in respect. Karim was still on the ground, struggling to recover from the blow. You'll regret this, he said, through clenched teeth. I won't regret anything, I shot back. The only thing I regret is marrying a man like him. I pointed at Ahmed. I turned to my husband, who looked as though he had seen a ghost. And you, Ahmed, this is the last day you'll ever see me. Nora, wait, he began. There's no waiting, I cut him off. You chose to gamble with your wife's dignity. Now live with the consequences. I went into the bedroom and began packing my things into a suitcase. My heart was pounding, but I felt strong, determined. I heard Karim get up from the floor and storm out of the apartment, cursing and threatening as he left. Ahmed came into the bedroom, desperate to stop me. Nora, please, can we talk? We've said everything there is to say, I answered without pausing my packing. But I love you, he said, his voice breaking. I can't live without you. I stopped and closed the suitcase. If you loved me, you wouldn't have gambled me away. Regret and apologies won't change what happened. Carrying the suitcase, I said coldly, you've lost everything, Ahmed. You've lost my love, my trust, my respect. I walked toward the door. He rushed after me. Where are you going? That's none of your business, I said sharply. But don't even think about looking for me or trying to contact me. I stopped at the door and gave him one last look. You killed our future with your own hands the moment you wagered me. I walked out of the apartment and shut the door behind me. On the street, I looked up at the building where I had spent 5 years of my life, 5 years of love, dreams and plans for the future. All of it destroyed in a single moment of greed and foolishness. I got into a taxi and gave the driver my sister's address in Helwan. Where to, sister? The driver asked. To start a new life, I replied, watching the streets of Cairo pass by through the window. I knew I had made the right decision. I would never allow any man, even my husband, to turn me into a wager or a bargaining chip. A woman's dignity is priceless and it can never be compromised under any circumstances. The road to Helwan was long, but I felt as though I was walking toward freedom, toward a new life where no one would ever dare belittle me again. A full year had passed since that cursed day. I was sitting in my new office at a large accounting firm in Nasser City, reviewing the financial reports of one of our clients. I had recently been promoted to head of the department. Life in my small new apartment was quiet and comfortable. I had learned to live with myself, to be strong and independent. My sister, Sarah, visited me every week, and my new colleagues had become an important part of my life. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. It was an unknown number, but I knew who it was. Ahmed. He had been trying to reach me for months from different numbers, but I had never answered. This time, his voice came through, heavy with sorrow and desperation. What do you want, Ahmed? I asked calmly. I want to see you. I want to talk to you. I told you before, we have nothing left to say. Nora, please. I regret so much what I did. I was a fool. What you did wasn't just a mistake. I cut him off. It was a choice. You chose to gamble with your wife's dignity. You chose your friendship with Karim over my respect. I cut ties with Karim completely, he said quickly. I haven't seen him since that day. Congratulations, I replied with sarcasm. But that doesn't change anything. Then what will change it? Tell me. Tell me what I can do to bring you back. I was silent for a moment, then said, "Nothing will bring me back, Ahmed. What happened killed everything between us." "But I love you," he pleaded. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done what you did." Love isn't just words. It's actions, respect, and appreciation. I heard him sobbing on the other end. "I don't know how to live without you." "You'll learn," I said firmly, "just as I learned." Our future, the children we dreamed of, the house we wanted to buy, all of it ended the day you placed that bet. "Goodbye, Ahmed." "Don't call again," I hung up, feeling a mixture of sadness and strength. Sadness for the beautiful days that were gone, and strength because I knew I had made the right decision. That evening, I walked along the Nile Corniche with my colleague, Huda. She was telling me about her recent engagement, about how her fiancé respected and valued her. "And you, Nora?" she asked. "Haven't you thought about marriage again?" "It's still too soon," I said. "I'm still learning to live for myself." "But you're beautiful, educated, successful. I'm sure many men would want to know you." I smiled. "Maybe. But I need to be sure that the man I marry will respect me and value me, not see me as something he owns." "You're right," Huda said. "Men need to learn that women have dignity and worth." As we walked, the Nile shimmered under the city lights. I thought about the lesson I had learned. True love does not bargain, does not gamble, does not diminish the value of a partner. True love protects, respects, and cherishes. Later that evening, I returned to my apartment carrying a bag of groceries from the market. The neighbors greeted me with respect. Children played in the street, and the sounds of ordinary life filled the air. At home, I prepared my dinner and sat in front of the television, watching an old Adel Imam film, The Yacubian Building. I followed the story of a strong woman who defied her circumstances and carved her own path. That was who I had become, a strong, independent woman who knew her own worth. I was no longer the woman who could be bargained over. I had become a woman who accepted nothing less than full respect and love. Before bed, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at myself. My face carried the features of confidence and strength. I had learned to love myself, to respect myself, before asking anyone else to respect me. Life had given me a harsh lesson, but it was a necessary one. It taught me that a woman's dignity is a red line that cannot be crossed, and that true love is built on mutual respect and appreciation, not ownership or dominance. As I prepared to sleep, I knew that tomorrow would be a new day, full of possibilities and opportunities, a new life, a new beginning, and a new woman, one who would never again allow herself to be the subject of a wager in a football match or in anything else. This is my story, the story of a woman who learned to say no at the right time and to choose her dignity above everything else in the world.